So this is less important, but still important so that you understand what's going on in the arguments. As you now know, you can have a premise, you can have a conclusion. You have to have at least one of those, or at least one of each of those to have an argument. But you can have more than that. In addition to the main conclusion, you can also have an intermediate conclusion. An intermediate conclusion is a claim that is supported by another piece of evidence in the argument, right? But it itself is being used to support the main conclusion. I'll give you a quick example. Let's see here. I don't want to get too political here. I'll just say this. Water is good for you. Therefore, you should drink it. Sound good? So the evidence is that water is good for you. Can you dispute that?
But why is it good?
Why is it good for you? If I say to you that water is good for you, water is good, and I don't explain it, I just say it as a premise on the LSAT, you just have to accept it. You say, okay, I don't know why it's good, but they told me it's good for you. Does that mean, therefore, that you should drink it? No, not necessarily. Just because something's good for you doesn't mean you should drink it, right? Like, I feel like there's a ton of stuff at Whole Foods that's really good for you, but there's no way in hell that I'm going to eat it because it costs so much money, right? Like, there are other considerations. Okay, so anyways, this is a premise, and therefore I have to accept it as true. I'm going to make this an intermediate conclusion because I'm using this to support this. But now, because I'm going to turn around and use that, the fact that you should drink it is therefore a reason that you should go buy it. Main conclusion, you should go buy water. Okay? Now again, that's not necessarily true. Maybe you could get it for free or something like that, right? But the point is that this is being used to support this, and this is being used to support that. So this thing right here is an intermediate conclusion. It's a conclusion because it's supported by a piece of evidence, but it's not the main conclusion because it itself is being used as evidence for the main conclusion. Question?
Could you make the intermediate conclusion a main conclusion and then fit an intermediate in between the two?
Sure, you could.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you could, and the order of these things is not necessarily important. What's important is what is the author using to support what. Now, because this is an intermediate conclusion, I don't have to accept it as true, even though it is also a premise. So on the LSAT, you only have to accept things that are purely premises as true. You don't have to accept intermediate conclusions as true because the author took time to try to explain why they were true. And you could call BS on that. Sound good? Okay, so we have premises, we have main conclusions, we have intermediate conclusions. I'm going to flag these two because you are always going to have at least one of those. You can also have the opinions of other people. This is very, very common. You will see that at the beginning of arguments, right? Scientists argue that Red Bull is toxic to your health. Sorry. Just, don't worry. I had a Jaeger bomb recently, and that was not good for me either. Scientists think that, or argue that Red Bull is toxic to your health, but they are wrong. Red Bull stimulates your nervous system. Right? Okay, so we were told what scientists think, that's the opinion of others. Then we were told that they are wrong, that's going to be my main conclusion. And then we were told that it stimulates your nervous system, right? That's my premise. So I'm using the fact that it stimulates my nervous system to support the idea that the scientists are wrong, right? The first sentence, though, telling us what the scientists think is the opinion of others. It is neither a premise nor a conclusion or an intermediate. Sound good? In most cases, people tend to disagree with the opinions of others that they provide to you, but sometimes they can agree. Question?
It's kind of a specific one.
Go for it.
But in questions that say, like, what is a, like, where's the point that's most vulnerable or something?
Yeah, that's a flaw question.
A flaw, yeah. So when they give opinions, is like an acceptable flaw being that, like, they are misrepresenting their opinion or they're simplifying it.
It's not very common, but they can do that, right? Someone could say, hey, I think Red Bull is toxic to your health, and you're like, that's stupid. There are definitely some drinks out there that are healthy for you, and you're kind of like, wait, did you respond to my comment about Red Bull, or are you just like commenting about drinks in general?
I didn't know if you had to take it so that, like, assuming that opinion that they're stating is 100%, they're being like,
true.
They're saying that like, there's no instance in which Red Bull is good for you. By stating that Red Bull.
Oh yeah, you have to be careful, and you have to look at exactly what they say, right? Is it usually bad for you, or is it usually toxic to your health?
Like if they just said like Red Bull is bad for you, do you have to take that statement as saying Red Bull is always bad for you, or just that it's bad?
It depends on how it's worded, but in that case, yeah, I would take it as it's always bad for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, one thing about opinions of others is we don't have to accept their opinion as true, but we do have to accept the fact that they have that opinion. Right? Like they're telling you that these people have this opinion. You can't be like, no, they don't. They have that opinion. The next question is that legit or not? I don't know. Okay, so we have opinions of others. The last thing that we have, actually two more things, concessions. Okay? Concessions are a little confusing because concessions actually hurt the main conclusion. If I said to you, although Teslas are very expensive, comma, you should buy one because they're beautiful. Right? What is my premise, Jim? Teslas are beautiful. My conclusion?
You should buy one.
You should buy one. My concession?
They are expensive.
They are expensive. So the fact that they are expensive, does that help my conclusion that you should buy one? Now, generally, people would consider that a negative, and therefore say, no, that hurts your conclusion that you should buy one. But I am stating it anyways to prevent counterargument. So it's something that seems to help the argument, but it in fact hurts it. So you can call it a concession or a counter premise, but the point is factually it hurts the argument, or logically it hurts the argument, it hurts the conclusion, but we still use it because it helps our argumentative strategy, right? Like it's a way of preventing counterargument. Although some politicians are very rude and obnoxious, just hypothetical, comma, you could say something like, I don't want to say anything else. Okay, so anyways, the last thing that I want to mention is assumption. As for short. Assumptions are unstated premises. In other words, they are pieces of evidence that were left out of the argument. The LSAT attacks assumptions left and right, every day, any which way it can, right? So, to give you an example of an assumption, if I said to you that Joey was caught selling meth at school, wow. Therefore, Joey should be expelled. How many people would agree with my conclusion? You guys are going to be great attorneys. You're like, just because he was caught with meth at school, selling meth at school, whatever, does not necessarily mean that Joey should be, what did I say, expelled? Oh, that's pretty strong. But anyways, I mean, meth is pretty bad too. So, but what's the assumption there, right? Yes?
Selling meth is bad, or...
Okay, that's one thing. Selling meth is bad, but it's also so bad that you should be expelled from school, right? Like, that's not necessarily true. But if I said to you, anyone caught selling meth should be expelled, Joey was caught selling meth, therefore Joey should be expelled, all of a sudden that argument is whole again and good because I took time to state the premise that if you get caught selling meth, you should be expelled from school, right? But if you don't take the time to say that, then that's not necessarily something that people have to accept as true because it was never stated as a premise. Right? Explicit premises must be accepted as true. Implicit or unstated premises do not have to be accepted as true and can be challenged. And the LSAT gives us argument after argument after argument that has unstated premises that most people agree with. And because most of us agree with them, we don't realize that they're being made. Right? If you went up to someone and said, yeah, did you hear Joey? Yeah, Joey got caught again selling meth. And they're like, yeah, you should get out of there. No one's going to be like, well, wait a second, you haven't told me whether or not that's an expellable offense, right? Some people might, but most people would roll with you because they would agree with the assumption and not realize that you hadn't said it. That's what our job is to do. Our job is to look at the argument and say, well, what pieces, what premises have you left out, and therefore what elements of your argument are vulnerable to attack? Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Now, any questions? Okay. Let's take a break.